Okay. Meeting is now called to order. Can I have a confirmation of the agenda, please? Mover, Councillor Bailey, seconded by Councillor Prinzen.
This is a Bailey-Prinzen motion that the agenda for the Planning Public Council meeting of November 20th, 2019 be confirmed.
Thank you. Moving on. All in favor?
All in favor?
All in favor, please? Opposed? That motion's carried. Okay, disclosure of pecuniary interest, and if any, the general nature thereof. Seeing none, we'll move on to item 4. If I could get someone to, oh no, first of all, I'll just read some announcements. I'd like to welcome all guests in the audience to the Planning Public Council. Tonight's meeting is being live streamed, and any participation in meeting procedures will become part of the public record. The recording from tonight's meeting will be published on the county's website immediately and can be viewed by selecting the streaming tab on the county's homepage. This meeting is a public meeting as required under the Planning Act and will deal with the planning applications listed on the agenda. If you wish to be notified of the decision of the County of Prince Edward on the proposed official plan amendment, you must use the sign-in sheet located at the podium, or make a written request to the clerk or the County of Prince Edward. If a person or public body would otherwise have an ability to appeal the decision of the County of Prince Edward to the Local Planning Appeal Tribunal, LPAT, but the person or public body does not make oral submissions at a public meeting or make written submissions to the County of Prince Edward before the proposed amendment is adopted, the person or public body is not entitled to appeal the decision to the Local Planning Appeal Tribunal. Deputations tonight are limited to 10 minutes each. If there are no identified deputations on the application, committee will proceed directly to the recommended motion without a staff overview. The Committee of Whole will consider and vote on each application separately, immediately following any staff remarks and comments from the applicant and/or member of the public. Please note that there is a potential that matters raised at the public meeting may result in written staff recommendation being amended verbally at the meeting. Motions that receive a 2/3 majority favor and vote of the staff recommendation will be approved and final at tonight's meeting. Motions that do not receive a 2/3 majority vote in favor of the staff recommendation will be referred to staff for further information or deferred to either the next Planning Public Council, and determination will be made at that time if further public notice is required, or to the next council meeting for a final decision. Excuse me. Finally, as a matter of housekeeping, to exit the building in the event of a fire, please use the stairs outside the door of the chamber, the ones you came up, or the stairs off the committee room to my left. Do not use the elevator, please. And if you have a cell phone, could you either turn it off or mute it at this time? Okay, so now we're going to move on to item 4, which will move us into the Committee of the Whole to consider staff reports. If I could have a motion. Councillor St. Jean, seconded by Councillor Bailey.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. It's St. Jean Bailey motion that Council now move into Committee of the Whole to consider staff reports with respect to the planning applications as listed on this agenda, receive deputations and submissions related to those planning applications, and make recommendations on each application.
Thank you, Councillor St. Jean. All those in favor? Opposed? That motion's carried. Okay, now we are sitting as the Committee of the Whole. I would just say ask planning staff to confirm if public notice for today's meeting was provided in accordance with all Planning Act requirements.
To the chair, yes, it was.
Thank you. Okay, and I'd also like to advise this evening that the following application, which was advertised, has been deferred and is not on tonight's agenda. That being rezoning file number Z32-19, Brian Draycott and Laura McNeil, 2738 County Road 1, part lot 103-104, concession 5, as in PE 172949, parcel 1, Ward 7, Hillier. Okay, having said that, we'll move on to the items for consideration this evening. First one being 5.1, Marion Johan Roth, 4052 County Road 8, south of County Road 8, Lakeside, east of Cape Vesey, Ward 8, North Marysburgh. First of all, do staff have any additional comments to include with their report?
Through the chair, we do not.
Thank you. Is the applicant or their agent present? And if so, could they come forward? Are you in agreement with, first of all, if you could just state your name, please?
Mike O'Neill.
Mike O'Neill. Are you in agreement with the conditions of approval as outlined in the report?
Yes, we are.
Thank you. That's fine. Is there anyone in the audience who wishes to speak to this application? Seeing none, I think we can ask for a mover and a seconder to put this one on the floor. Councillor Bailey and Councillor McNaughton. And does anyone like to speak to this tonight or have any questions? Or would you like to read it first? Thank you.
This is a Bailey McNaughton motion that the report of development services dated November 20th, 2019 regarding consent file number B58-19 and zoning bylaw amendment file number Z53-19 be received, that consent file number B58-19 Marion Johan Roth for lands located in Part Lot 6 Concession Ordinance Reserve Part Lot A Concession Lakeside east of Cape Vesey as in PE 55093 south of County Road 8 S/T NM 4996 Ward 8 North Marysburgh be approved subject to the following conditions 1 through 12, that zoning amendment file number Z53-19 Marion Johan Roth for lands located in Part 6 Concession Ordinance Reserve, Part Lot A Concession Lakeside east of Cape Vesey, as in PE 55093 south of County Road 8 S/T NM 4996 Ward 8 North Marysburgh be approved.
Thank you, Councillor Bailey. Does anyone want to speak to the report? It's been approved. Councillor Bailey.
Just quickly, I had concerns about this. I have spoken with Mr. O'Neill about my concerns. It is ANSI and ANSI and a protected forest. He has no interest in going near any of those or altering any of those in any way. The neighbors expressed a concern to me, Michael, about 10 months ago. I think you and I first started talking about this, yeah, and that's all resolved now, so I have no issues with this whatsoever.
Thank you. Anyone else? Seeing none, I'm going to put this motion to a vote. All those in favor? Opposed? That motion's carried with a 2/3 majority. Okay, we'll move on to item number 5.2. Marion and Corradina Patane. Okay, do staff have any additional comments to add to the staff report included?
We do not.
Thank you. Is the applicant or agent present representing this file? Seeing none. Does someone want to put this on the floor then? Or do we need an agent or an applicant to be here? No, I didn't think so. So Councillor McNaughton, seconded by Councillor St. Jean.
Thank you. This is the McNaughton St. Jean motion that the report of the development services dated November 20th, 2019 regarding zoning bylaw amendment file number Z52-19 to lift holding symbol be received. That zoning amendment file number Z52-19 Marion and Corradina, Patane, located at 104 Brickworks Drive, described as PCL 6-1 SEC 47 M2 LT 6 Part Lot 47 M2 Ameliasburgh STPT 47R 7713 as in PE 45 734 in the ward of Ameliasburgh be approved.
Okay, does anyone want to speak to the motion on the floor? I'll just add that we're removing the holding symbol from a lot within a registered plan of subdivision, and they've made the applicable submissions to have the holding provision lifted. So if no one wants to speak to it, let's vote on this motion. All those in approve? Opposed to? That motion's carried with the 2/3 majority. Thank you. Okay, moving on to item number 5.3. 26937773 Ontario Incorporated, southeast side of Bethesda Road, across from 789 Bethesda Road. This is in Sophiasburgh. Its consent files B46-19 and B47-9, and zoning amendment file Z46-19. Okay, staff. I see that the initial report's been rescinded. Do you have any additional comments to include?
Through the chair, no, we do not.
Okay. Thank you. Okay, is the agent or the applicant in attendance?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. My name is Brendan O'Connor. I'm a land use planning consultant. I'm here on behalf of the applicants. What we're looking at here are lots that are rural lots that are between 9 and 11 acres in size. You may recall this application was before the last planning committee, and it was deferred due to questions regarding MDS. I've since worked with staff, looked at the neighboring barns, done the appropriate measurements, and you can see that as part of the package. There's no issues with MDS. I've also reviewed the conditions of approval with the applicant, and they're in agreement. And again, the new condition regarding the scoped hydrogeological study, they're in agreement with that as well. And we've already spoken with a licensed hydrogeologist who is understanding that the neighbors will be involved in the consultation process, and that is actually pretty standard when it comes to these types of studies. Thank you.
Okay, so just to summarize, you as the agent are in agreement with the conditions of approval as outlined in the report?
Yes.
Thank you. Is there anyone in the audience who wishes to speak to this application this evening? Okay, there's 3. If you want to come forward in any order, state your name and you can speak to the subject application, please. And sign in too, please.
Yes, I have signed in.
Okay, thank you.
Once again, I'm Dee Hazel and I live in Concession. So last time I spoke to the Bethesda Road severances, I'm just going to remind you it was one plot of land from which 5 building lots were planned. That requires a plan of subdivision. There was a couple of remarks made at the last meeting. One was by Councillor Forster, where there was a conversation that happened, and my understanding was that if he phrased it that if council did not approve something that the planning folks recommended, there would be possible legal ramifications. There might be legal ramifications, whatever people choose. If I, as a member of the community, and I know because I've already done it, taken the county to the OMB, or as it's now called, the Local Planning Appeal Tribunal, if a member of the community feels that whatever's going on, the severances that are happening, are not following the rules, we can go ahead with legal proceedings. There was also a remark made at the last meeting, I believe it was Councillor Roberts, I'm not sure, about how the official plan didn't really have teeth to stop the runway development, and I have gone through the official plan now. I only got up to page 87 of 219 pages, but I did find 35 points that talks about overdevelopment in the rural areas. So I believe that if council or anybody is concerned about the runway development in the county, you have at least, and next time I come, I'll have the rest of the official plan read, at least 35 points where you can challenge the runway development. And there was one point that leapt off the pages at me, 2.4.10. Settlement in the rural areas will maintain the quality, diversity, and character of the rural landscape, will be directed away from the agricultural and agri areas, and will not create an overcrowded and suburbanized countryside. I challenge you to take any road trip around the county and say that we're not becoming rather suburbanized. That's all I have to say this evening. Questions, comments?
Thank you, Dee.
You're welcome.
Does council have any questions for the deputant?
Okay.
Seeing none.
See you next time.
Okay, could the next comment from the audience or speaker please come forward?
Yeah. Through the chair to council, my name is Melt Dalmage. I'm here tonight to continue in my effort to convince you that you're going down the wrong path by chopping up farmland for building lots. The property in question tonight is the other half of the once single 60-acre parcel of land known as 789 Bethesda Road. My main concern now is the same as it's always been, and that is about having an adequate water supply for existing wells nearby the property across the road from 789 Bethesda. On November 12th, I listened to all the talking points that were made. Number one, about how it was a bad idea to split up farmland, which was happening in rural areas. Number two, the fact that there's a seasonal lack of good groundwater supply in many areas of the county. And number three, that we should do something about this and change the official plan to acknowledge these concerns. After all that discussion, the majority of you still voted to accept the Planning Department's recommendations and approve the zoning and subdivision applications. This, of course, after a wording change in regard to the digging of test wells between August and October. And that stipulation should have always been in the official plan, as far as I'm concerned, for the entire county. If we wait until the newly revised official plan is carved in stone, it'll be too late to save any farmland. If the vote takes place tonight on these applications for zoning changes and subdivisions, as it should, I'm told it requires a 2/3 majority. If it's put off to a regular council meeting, as what happened on October 16th, then a 50% majority will allow it to pass. So we'll see what happens. Here's a historical background. About 100 years ago, a man by the name of Simpson owned all the farmland in the area we're discussing. Bethesda Road was only a forestry road then. At some point, it became a county-maintained road and eventually was called Bethesda Road. Mr. Simpson, like so many property owners of the day, had a choice to either leave the properties as they were, or they could choose to have the road cause a natural severance. He left it as it was. Although other parcels, including where my wife and I live, were sold off, 789 Bethesda remained one 60-acre parcel with a road down the middle. It stayed that way till about 2 years ago, when the previous owners, who bought it in September 2016, decided to sever it into two 30-acre parcels divided by the road. Prior to them buying this parcel, I tried to buy the property we're talking about tonight from the estate of Pat Zolf, but learned from the executor and James Barr in the planning department that I couldn't because it was one property with a road down the middle, not naturally severed. The land registry office confirmed this. Mr. Barr said it could be severed if it were surveyed, but could only be split once. If I wanted to build a house there, it would require zoning change. I just liked the property and said I would not build, just enjoy it. The executor just wanted to settle the estate, not spend any money out of pocket. I understood, let it go. Probably a big mistake, as it turns out. Enter the couple who bought it 3 years ago, severed it 2 years ago, thinking that they might someday rezone and build. They did some work on the old farmhouse at 789 Bethesda Road, but it was too much work and too costly. They decided to sell that side of the road, keeping the 30-acre parcel across the road. Life happened, plans changed. Michael Hymas wanted the whole property. They sold it to him. He now wants to take a once severed 60-acre parcel into two 30-acre parcels of land and resever each side of the road to make 6 individual lots with 5 new homes, 5 new wells, and 1 old farmhouse with an existing well. For the life of me, I don't understand why the planning department of Prince Edward County thinks that it's a sound move to recommend this to council for approval. It only benefits a select few: the developer, the real estate agent who works with him, and to a small extent the county for the property tax bump up. Leave the development to areas where homes can be hooked up to municipal services like water and sewer. They could benefit from natural gas and cable, all of which are unavailable where I live. When I met with Mr. Hymas at his request shortly after he purchased the properties, we spoke for about 15 minutes. He explained to me what his intentions were and hoped that I would be on board with it. I was not, and I told him that and why. He said that he wanted to work with the neighbors but was going ahead anyway. I asked him why out here. He said, it's all about the money. Well, I'm here to tell you tonight, for those of us county residents who were born here, raised here, worked here, and like me retired here, it is not all about the money. It's about the peace and tranquility of living in a sparsely populated farming community with good neighbors, but not close enough to look into their living room windows. And some of our neighbors who have come here from different places to escape the crowded life have moved into existing homes. And believe me, they're just as bothered about what's happening as I am. Anybody have any questions for me?
Thank you, Milt. Did you sign in?
I did.
Thank you. Does council have any questions for the deputy? I don't see any. Thank you. And there was one other person that wanted to comment on.
Hi again. My name is Jake LaRose. I will sign in a moment here. I guess two things. One, I mentioned last week about the opposite side of the road that I thought that those well pump tests were a good idea, that they need to be conducted when the water is in short supply, August through October, and should have no adverse impacts on neighbors' wells, right? But the second piece that I think is really important here, as I was reading through the official plan in preparation for this, is that what is being approved here essentially is a subdivision in a rural area. It can't be serviced with water or sewer. It's on a road that's soon to become a gravel road. I challenge any of you to do 70 as the posted speed limit down the thing. This isn't picked in Bloomfield, Wellington, or Rossmore. It doesn't even have a name. It's inconsistent with the development strategy for rural areas. I'm not going to quote it to you, but 6.12. I understand that development by subdivision isn't permitted in rural areas, and that what's currently proposed on both sides of the road all hinges on that Bethesda Road creates a natural division of what was once a single lot. And then now no consent is needed to consider what was once 2 lots. We appear to be getting a subdivision in the middle of nowhere with no appropriate services because of a loophole and without a plan of subdivision. What's in the official plan and what was read a moment ago, to me, doesn't seem sincere. It rings hollow. You know, if in fact it can't be enforced, what's the point of having it in there or even aspiring to it? Notwithstanding the loophole about the road creating a natural severance, does anyone on council believe that what's proposed on both sides of the road is properly cited? I'll leave you with that. Thanks.
Thank you. Does anyone on council have any questions for the deputy?
You're on the right one.
Seeing none, I'm going to ask for someone to put the motion on the floor, please. Moved by Councillor Roberts, seconded by Councillor Bailey. Sir?
This is a Roberts-Bailey motion that the report of development services dated October 16, 2019 regarding consent file numbers B46-19 and B47-19 and zoning bylaw amendment file number Z46-19 be rescinded, that the report of development services dated November 20, 2019 regarding consent files B46-19 and B47-19 and zoning bylaw amendment file number Z46-19 be received, that consent file numbers B46-19 and B47-19 bracket 2693773 Ontario Inc. bracket for lands located in Part Lot 3 Plan 2 Gore B Part 3 47R 8796 Ward 6 Sophiasburgh be approved subject to the following conditions. Those conditions are 1 through 12, and that zoning amendment file Z4619 bracket 2693773 Ontario Inc. bracket for lands located in Part Lot 3 Plan 2 Gore B Part 3 47R 8796 Ward 6 Sophiasburgh be approved. I'd like to speak to it.
Thank you, Councillor Roberts. Yes, sir.
I have some questions for staff. Thank you. I have some questions for staff, if that's okay. I just want to be clear for those who are in attendance and seeing the streaming, that this application, I'm looking for confirmation by staff, meets all planning principles of the municipality and the province and is, of course, a recommendation by staff. Is that correct?
Through the chair, that is correct.
Thank you. And I also would like confirmation for those who are watching and listening that we have amended the application to include language which we approved and included at the last council meeting regarding other properties on Bethesda to address proof of groundwater source, mostly under condition 7, consultation with neighbors, no adverse effects, taking sharp consideration for seasonality, and consultation, as I repeat, with the neighbors. That's correct?
Through the chair, that is correct.
Thank you. And could I have staff comment with regard to, I think, very powerful statements made at the podium this evening regarding the suburbanization of rural areas in the official plan and no subdivisions in rural areas, and us council being on the verge of approving this through a loophole. I'd like staff's comment on that, please. Thank you.
Well, it wouldn't be a subdivision because, as we have heard, it might be a loophole, but it is through the Planning Act that a road does create a natural severance. Therefore, it is 2 separate lots, so it wouldn't be creating a subdivision. In our rural area, you are permitted 2 new lots, as the lot existed in 1998. So through our official plan, both these lots are permitted to have what they are, or the one that was approved, and then this one, what they are proposing.
Go ahead, Bill.
Paul, do you have anything to add?
Well, I think through the chair, I think James was accurate in his assessment that we have 2 independent parcels that may have been perceived as one, and maybe the road wasn't surveyed and registered as such, but my understanding of the Planning Act and how parcels defined is that the boundaries of the road would still exist legally, and by definition, a separate lot is that which does not that which abuts other separate ownership including the road. So the instance here, someone owned 2 lots on each side of the road. And in the official plan, a parcel, of which we have 2 here, is eligible for consent to sever individual lots without a plan of subdivision, up to a maximum of 2 lots, if those weren't subject to previous severances since 1998. So these parcels conform to the official plan in that regard. In terms of the lot sizes and the density that has been expressed concern by some, the lot areas exceed the minimum lot areas that are specified in the official plan. So one, they qualify for the severance policies of 2 per parcel. Secondly, they meet the minimum lot area and frontage requirements of the official plan as well. And thirdly, they're meeting the potable water requirements as requested by the official plan and exceeding that minimum policy as established by the official plan.
Thank you. And just, these are provisional approval. They have to meet these conditions. So if they can't meet the condition, specifically the one regarding water, then they wouldn't be able to get the consent registered. I mean, that's important to note that this is just a conditional approval. They have to meet the 12 conditions.
That's correct. If any condition is failed to have been met, then the application fails and would be closed or would lapse,
right.
And additional application would be required if it were ever to be proposed anew.
And further, I just want to say this now because Councillor Roberts brought it up, but I spoke at the last meeting on the other side of the road about the vision statements or the motherhood statements in the official plan. And if we use those to defend your decisions, we may have a different outcome. But technically, this one is approvable. So that's where we're at today, and we spoke about the new official plan at that time.
You know, through the chair, just going to say that the concerns about not defending the official plan per se, that from a staff perspective, having been before the board and now LPAT many times, my view is that it would be hard to defend a denial of this application given our past practices and established policy. We can look at new policies in the draft official plan when that comes forward, but under this official plan, the densities and policies are established, and this is in conformity with that.
But I do acknowledge one of the deputants saying we have these in our official plan, and what good are they if they really go in opposition to what we're dealing with tonight? So I just wanted to acknowledge what they said. And I'll move on now to Councillor McNaughton's comments.
You kind of just said what I was going to say. You too. Thanks. I do just want to clarify, there was no prior application. So one was referred to as, there was a severance referred to having happened 2 years ago. This was not on record? Okay, because of the natural severance. Just wanted to make sure. Thank you.
Excuse me, I know this is maybe out of your norm, but I'd like to ask a question through the chair, please.
First, we're going to go through the councillors. Just a moment, please. Councillor Bailey.
I share Mr. Dolmage's concerns because I'm likely to be dealing with a similar circumstance in my own neighborhood sometime soon, but I've got a whole other concern. I'm on page 286 of our agenda, and I've got a map that's attached to the bylaw, and it shows EP zones being changed to no longer EP zones. How does that happen?
Through the chair. So our mapping was off, and Quinny, we noted that, and through our GIS, we corrected it, and it actually added more EP than less EP.
Is this specific to this area, or are you doing it throughout the area? Because this is obviously going to come up again.
When we see through applications like this is when we take that opportunity to correct these errors.
Thank you.
Thanks. I think this type of planning review on a specific lot gives the opportunity to field truth EP lines, and this is what was happening in this file. So it actually is more specific and the information is better. Next, I had Councillor Nyman.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I know you've already explained it, but I just need to understand it a bit more, I guess. I believe the last person up there said that 6.1.2 references the plan of subdivision, that portion of the official plan. So can you tell us what that is and how that don't apply here?
Plan of subdivision does not apply here, as they are only creating two new lots on each, or two new lots on each parcel, or on this parcel, where plan of subdivision would be more than two lots.
So the reference to the 6.1.2, what does that pertain? Like, what's in that clause, I guess?
Through the chair, I'd have to pull up my official plan. I don't have it with me. I'd have to pull up the official plan and read it verbatim to really give you an accurate response. But
here, if you want.
Sure. Sure, I'll read it verbatim, given the interest of council. Is the intent, so this is in the rural designation. Section 6 is the rural designation. And the subtitle is Rational Strategy for Development. And the policy, or the preamble to the actual policy section, is 6.1.2, reading, is the intent of the plan to maintain the natural and scenic qualities of the rural designation and to preserve its rural character and lifestyle and significant open lands. Limited development, which is consistent with the vision statement, will be allowed in the rural designation. So we have a few key phrases in there. We have rural character, we have limited development as allowed in the rural designation. That is further articulated in the plan on the consent section of what limited means. We've said that's two new lots. And these are larger lots, so in the view of some, as we've heard from the consultant, it's maintaining rural character. In which case it also maintains some of the natural qualities. We see that some of the fence lines and whatnot, they're kept intact. So with the ample depth of the lots as well, there's going to be an opportunity for the building to be set back more for the road. Again, maintaining the rural character and the scenic qualities. In the back, we see that there were, if you recall, some fields, and part of the reason why we're back here again is to have that zone amendment refined to make sure that there's clarity that some of those fields can be worked for agricultural purposes. So you align all the qualities or properties or characteristics of these lots with this policy. It's my opinion that the application before the council tonight is conformity with that section.
Did you want to add something, James?
Just that yes, the application does conform with the official plan.
Thank you. Madam Clerk,
And just to clarify, what you would be passing tonight is a zoning bylaw amendment only. And severance.
two severances and the zoning bylaw.
So as much as the official plan does have a lot to do with this application, let's try to keep it to what is being asked, which is a zoning bylaw amendment and the severance.
Well, no, to meet the test, it has to be in conformance with the official plan. So this what we're speaking about applies to what we're deciding on, in my opinion. Okay, so I had Councillor Nyman, Councillor Maynard.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. To staff, I've got a couple questions when some of those excerpts that were read to us from the official plan. So it talked about suburbanizing. What is there any definition in there? I wish you could pop all that stuff up on the screen for us, but suburbanization in the rural lands. That's one question. If you want to mark these down, because I'm going to go through them here a little bit. The other one is, so I know on my first term of council, we had where there was forced roads, and there had maybe been that the parcels were merged because there was no natural severance. So I'm wondering, when you look at the map, it kind of looks, and condition 3 actually speaks to the fact that that we may not own the road, that it may be a forced road, which is likely why that was one parcel at one time, and that laneway has over the years become a plowed road, and we've now, I mean, if you look at the map, it kind of looks like it's, you know, maybe not exactly where the road was intended to be. So if it is a forced road and we only own the surface of the road, does that still allow it a natural severance? Because it would have been all one, it would have been all surveyed out originally in the old surveys as one plot of land. Does anybody look to see if that was if that's a forest road or if that was an original surveyed road?
Bethesda Road, to my knowledge, publicly maintained road, so it would be a road, an open road allowance that is used and maintained by the county.
We have publicly maintained roads that were never really designated as road allowances, right? The roads have meandered in some pretty strange directions in the county. So I just, because
Mr. Chair, can they put it up on the screen so we can have a look? Can they put it up on the screen, the map, please?
I'm kind of looking at that one, but it's hard to see.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Maynard, and I'm not finished if you're not, but
so
I've asked for the parcel mapping to please. I think that is the sketch, if I'm not mistaken.
That is.
Yes.
It's difficult to see, but.
I'm sure that legally that's a road, if it's been used and maintained by the public over a number. Now, I understand what you're saying.
Right, that they would.
It may not have been a quarter session road. There's a lot of forest roads in Prince Edward County. However, I think legally, due to the statute of limitations, and it's been maintained and utilized by the public, it's a road. So if we're not going to say that those two properties are merged now, I think is where I'm going with this. So if staff want to confirm that.
Through the chair, the applicant is required to declare that as a separate parcel upon application. And they typically submit a PIN abstract. A PIN is a property identification number abstract from the land titles office, as well as PIN map. And that is another indication or verification of the legal boundaries of the property. So, and the agent has just indicated to me briefly ago that the two properties were purchased from the same person, but at different times and registered at different times. So it wasn't bought as one parcel either.
Right. Even though they have to demonstrate, as in per condition 3, that we may not have clear title, and they will be responsible for the costs. And so that condition is in there. Okay? So
that's correct. There may be some encroachment where the road's located.
Okay.
That's common.
Right. Which is different than not owning the road at all. Right. Does that answer your question, Councillor Maynard?
Yeah, I know in the first term, this whole natural severance thing has not always been exactly how we've done it. I think this has evolved over the recent history. So at some point, though, that if that farm was one, there was a, so was it really severed
all over
by
the
road?
county like that? Yeah.
Yeah. And my other question, though, was about what a definition of suburbanization, like how we.
To the chair, I would, and maybe James can help me with this. The suburbanization typically is viewed as strip development, so parcelization of a higher density, not typical of a rural area. So you might have strip development of lots with 100 or 150 feet frontage, and so these kind of policies do find traction if someone decides they're going to do an official plan amendment, and they want to vary from the standards articulated in the official plan. So they are high-level statements, but they did give good direction if someone decides to be aggressive with the policies, seeking amendments to the plan. and want to have more than 2 lots created, have those lots smaller than what our plan is suggesting is desired, and maybe even willing to prove it through fairly extensive servicing studies, etc. Well, the plan in those high-level, and someone said motherhood statements, do find traction because they give direction as to how the plan would evolve as well. So I think in terms of suburbanization, that's controlled through some of these higher-level statements.
But also you define limited, which is the 2 severances plus a retained. And I think that's in it, and I'm hoping in the new plan it might come down to density, more like the STAs, because that's what we're dealing with here, is the density, not 2 severances on each parcel, which may better help us find that characterization of rural areas that we want to maintain. Density. Okay, I had next is Councillor Gore.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I think we're flogging this a little bit, but I think just to be clear, in my mind too, I like sort of clear pictures. So just, it's going to be a bit of a rhetorical question for staff, and the way I understand, we have the official plan, which is the blueprint, and there's high-level policy there, and we put that into effect through our planning process, that has processes and procedures, and those are public, right? And if an applicant follows those steps through the planning department and checks all the boxes, you're going to approve it because that is how we put that official plan. And the control for suburbanization is that 2 severances for any property after 1998. That's how we control suburbanization. That's the policy we put in effect. If this council thinks that that is not sufficient, we need to change the rules. Am I on the right track?
That's a very good characterization, Mr. Chairman.
So, but the rules are what they are right now, and this applicant, the reason that the planning department is recommending this is because the applicant has followed the rules as they exist now. Is that accurate? That's accurate, yes. Right. So, it follows the plan. They've done everything that they've been asked to. There's obviously some extra things that we've thrown in there because of some concerns. But going forward, if this council hoists aboard the concerns we've heard tonight, that this may not be sufficient to control suburbanization, we need to change those policies and procedures to give effect to that. Is that accurate? Okay, thank you. That answers my questions.
Councillor Prinzen.
Mr. Chair, you need to put yours, yours has to stay on.
Hey, what? All right, so I guess I'll be Councillor Forrester's chair tonight, but my question refers to page 182, or my concerns, I guess, and it says strategic plan priority implications, and it says the recommendations of this report contribute to the following objectives of the strategic plan to manage growth and its impacts. I don't see this as managing growth and its impacts. Like, we talk 2 severances, and I understand the rules and it's stuff like that, but when I was under the impression of the 2 severances, or I guess going way back, probably before me, but the 2 severances on a farm that they allowed was one for the hired man, one for the son, if the farm was going to keep going. And I know this is a loophole that's happened, but how can we say this is managing growth and its impacts when I don't see it? I mean, it's 6 houses within a stone's throw, even if they put them in the back corner of the lot. So just, can you comment on that, how you see this as managing growth and its impacts? Thanks.
Well, first, managing growth, I think goes back to that maximum of 2 severances policy, that if in some official plans it's a lot more than 2. Some plans historically there wasn't a number, and so you saw maybe 5 or 6 severances on some sidewalks because they had lots of frontage. So historically, and looking at other official plans and having administered different official plans over the years, I'd say that this is a generally good policy since 1998, because it is as I say, a little bit more regulating than what I've seen some other official plans do. That's not to say that the draft official plan might not find a little bit more traction to deal with the kind of growth pressures we're now seeing and are expecting to continue to see. So, but council will have that chance at that time. But right now, the 2 at a time, maximum of 2, rather, is regulating growth, in my view, generally speaking. In terms of the second aspect of the question and its managing its impacts, we've seen the revised condition number 7 and how we are going to be looking at the drawdown rates of any adjacent wells that people might have a concern with, that the seasonality question will be addressed, and that the neighbors will be consulted in the process. So there may be, instead of a well located close to a property line, it might be located set back from a property line more. Surprisingly, last time I looked, the Ontario Water Resources Act didn't have a lot of clearances, or traditionally it hadn't. So I think all those revisions to condition 7 has been responsive to council's concerns that way.
I just want to add that what Councillor Prinz brought up brings another point to light, which is our corporate strategic plan. One of our priorities is to maintain the rural and historic character of Prince Edward County. So again, we're seeing that maybe some of our priorities are at odds with what our implementing policies within the official plan are. Okay, anyone else want to speak to this? Seeing none, we have the motion. Oh.
I had a question.
Okay, with council's indulgence. Okay, does anyone oppose that? No. Come ahead, Milt.
Thank you for this. I don't know about the rest of you, but I'm a little bit confused, and I'll explain that. Last week, I decided to contact the previous owner of this property, and I asked him explicitly, even though I thought I knew the answer. I said, you had that severed into 2 pieces, 30 acres each. Yes, I did, because I thought I might want to build a house on the other side and sell the old farmhouse at some point. So I went to find out. And they told me that I had to have it surveyed, which I did. He paid Watson's to have it surveyed. And I had to pay to have it severed. So the road did not give a natural severance, unless you got a different term for that word natural than I'm aware of. He paid out of his pocket to the county to have that 60-acre parcel divided into 2 30-acre parcels. If he did not have to do that and just have it surveyed because there was a natural severance down the middle, why did he have to pay for that? I don't understand, and maybe somebody
probably the farm had never been surveyed.
That's true.
So to register 2 parcels now,
it is
that he
now.
wanted separate, he
now.
has to define them, and that would have been through a legal survey. That's my experience.
I know that it hadn't been surveyed because Watson's told me that when they came over. Like, we got nothing here that's never been surveyed. So they surveyed it. But he paid to have it severed. There's 2 different terms here. There's surveying and severing. And so I think we're kind of fudging around.
Well, he paid the surveyor, but I don't know if he paid the municipality to sever something that was already had a road.
He told me he absolutely did. And he could probably send a cancel check.
I can't confirm that, but thank you for the information. Do you want to speak? Does staff want to add anything?
I'm not aware if there was anything with our roads department to facilitate that or not. I'm assuming that there may have been, just to clear up the title on the road perhaps, but the municipal act says that a road is a road if it existed as of 2001, January 2001, something like that. So it doesn't have to have existed in title necessarily. So as clearly as that. So it's the survey and the conveyance into a clear deed is a legal process, but the legality of the road, I believe, and I'm not a lawyer, but my understanding is that road still exists, and it's more than just surface rights, it's a legal road by virtue of that statement on this plot. But I'm not a lawyer either.
Thank you, Paul. Okay, the motion's on the floor. All those in favor? Opposed? That motion's lost. Okay, we're going to move on to item 5.4. This is Darren Clark, south of 4980B County Road 1, consent file B50-19, which would be a lot addition, and zoning amendment file Z49-19. Okay. Is the applicant or agent present?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, I'm Michael McCartney.
Okay, thank you. Did you sign in?
I did.
Okay, and are you in agreement with the conditions of approval as outlined in the report?
I am.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Is there anyone in the audience who wishes to speak to the subject application? Seeing none? Okay, can I ask someone to put that on the floor for me, please? Councillor Prinzen, seconded by Councillor Nyman. Sir?
It's a Prinzen-Nyman motion that the report of the development services dated November 20th, 2019 regarding consent file number B50-19 and zoning bylaw amendment file number Z49-19 be received. That consent file number B50-19 Darren Clark for lands located in part lot 93 to 94, concession 5 as in PE 180456, except part 3 47R 8091 Ward 7 Hillier be approved, subject to the following conditions. 1 through 9. And that zoning amendment file number Z49-19 Darren Clark for lands located in part lot 93-94 concession 5 as in PE 180456 except part 3 47R 8091 Ward 7 Hillier be approved.
Okay, now that that's on the floor, I'm going to ask planning staff who've requested a slight amendment to the conditions. Could you speak to those, please?
Yes. So the first one was the engineering department had asked for a 20-meter wide mutual entrance, and that is quite a large entrance. So we consulted with the applicants and took that off, and now the dimensions are just going to be to the satisfaction of the Director of Development Services. And secondly, we kept a existing entrance as a field entrance, as the applicants will be crossing the road with their tractors, and this, rather than going to the new shared entrance, this will be the safest way to access the benefiting parcels from their existing home.
Thank you, James. So we do have a slight amendment. Are you aware of those, Mr. McCartney? I apologize.
Yes.
Yes.
We are. James kindly explained it to us. You want me to talk at the microphone?
Please. Sorry about that. Yeah. I just wanted to make sure you were aware of these slightly amended conditions.
We discussed this with staff and agree with the new suggestions.
Great. Thank you very much. Yeah. Okay. Does anyone want to speak to the motion? Or
So, through you, Mr. Chair, can I get a mover and seconder for the amendment?
So, Councillor Prinzen, seconded by Councillor McNaughton on the motion as the amendment at this point. Okay. Now we'll ask if there's any questions. Yeah. Councillor McNaughton.
I'm still unclear. They're still required to build a new entrance. Just the width has not been specified.
Through the chair, yes. So right now there is a existing right-of-way to the retained lands, but since they are severing off where the right-of-way would go on to, we are asking that they create a new entrance, a shared entrance, as this will, because County Road 1 is very busy. So this will also allow entrance for the owners of the retained lands, but they are also going to keep a farm or field entrance where the existing right-of-way is for the benefiting lands in order for safe travel to and from across County Road 1 to their home.
However, they both have existing access that they currently use to reach their lands?
So the retained lands, where you get their access from, if you see the dotted lines right at the top there, it would be a right-of-way over the benefiting lands. So since we are severing off where their access would be, rather than extending that, we are requesting that there would be an entrance, a proper entrance to the retained lands, which would be shared with the benefiting lands for a proper entrance that needs to be constructed.
Okay, and they're happy with that? Yes. Okay. Thank you.
So as I understand it, the present entrance will serve the lot addition and their existing property.
Yes.
But it's the retained that needs the entrance, really.
Correct.
Thank you. And we've heard that the applicant is in agreement. Councillor Nyman.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So the shared entrance is to residential lots, I guess. And the new entrance is going to be the field entrance. Is that correct?
So there is an existing field entrance, and that is going to remain, as the applicants are going to be driving their tractors and such, and they felt that is the safest way rather than going from, because their house is directly across the road on County Road 1, so rather than going to the new shared entrance, they will use that entrance for their farm equipment, as we'll take farm equipment off the roads and just quickly across the road rather than onto the, down the road 600 feet to the new shared entrance.
Okay, so I guess my question is, the shared entrance isn't going to be used for entrance to the field? No. Okay.
Please.
I guess I'm okay with the amendment, but I'm just, so the engineering staff recommended 20 meters. So what makes you think when it goes back, if we're saying to the satisfaction of the director of engineering, who I'm assuming is the one that made the recommendation for 20 meters, and it's really hard. So I'm going to ask you that question, but on this diagram, it's kind of hard to visualize where those, and I know you don't have a pointer. We should have a pointer so you can see, but I guess first I just ask, if it was the engineering department that made the recommendation, what makes you think they're going to change their recommendation? Like, doesn't.
Through the chair, I spoke with the director of development and engineering, and he agreed that it was a large driveway, and it's sort of, I believe it's the engineering staff uses that as their mutual entrance, but in a second look, the director believed that a small entrance could happen, so he's satisfied with it being to his satisfaction.
Okay. Oh, you do have one.
There you go. There you go. So that is where the existing right-of-way is, and so right here they are adding this lot. So rather than extending the right-of-way, they will be removing this right-of-way but keeping the entrance to this field.
Yeah.
And a shared entrance, which will be at the shared property line right here, will be implemented.
Thank you. Thank you.
Okay. So we have the motion on the floor and we have the amendment on the floor. So now we'll have the motion as amended. No?
No. First, you'll vote on the amendment. So I'll get Councillor Prinzen to read that out loud.
Prinz and McNaughton, that conditions 6 and 7 be amended to read as follows. The owners apply for and obtain an entrance permit and civic address and construct a mutual standard entrance from County Road 1 located at the common lot line of the benefiting and retained parcels be constructed. The transfer deed of the land shall include appropriate reciprocal, thanks Stuart, easements for right-of-way purposes. Draft copies of the transfer deed of land and the reference plan shall be submitted to the county for review and approval by the Director of Development Services. And number 7, the owner applies for and obtains a Farm 911 Emily project access point for the existing field entrance.
Okay, is everybody good with that? Okay, all those in favor? That's carried. Okay, now we have the motion as amended. We need a mover and a second. No, we had, oh, well, he did the amendment and the original one as amended? Okay.
Yeah.
Prinz and Nyman. Okay, so does anyone want to speak to that? All those in favor? That's carried. Okay, let's move on. Item 5.5, Janine Gray, 28 Store Street. Two severance consent files, B62 and B63-19, zoning amendment file Z61-19. Okay. Is the applicant or agent present? No applicant or agent in the audience tonight? Okay. Is there anyone in the audience who wishes to speak to this application? Okay, seeing none. Could I have someone from council put that on the motion on the floor, please? Councillor McNaughton, seconded by Councillor Bailey.
I have to go back to the top.
So this is the McNaughton-Bailey motion that the report of the Department of Development Services dated November 20th, 2019 regarding consent file numbers B62-19, B63-19, and zoning bylaw amendment file number Z61-19 be received. That consent file numbers B62-19, B63-19, Janine Gray, for lands located in lot 18 to 20, 25 Plan 2, Concession, Ameliasburgh, part lot 11 to 13, sorry, 11-13, 17, 21-24, 26, or 30-31, Plan 2, Concession, Ameliasburgh, part unnamed street between Bay Street and Store Street, Plan 2, Ward 4, Ameliasburgh, be approved subject to the following conditions 1 through 12, and that zoning amendment file number Z61-19, Janine Gray, for lands located at 28 Store Street, Ward 4, Ameliasburgh, be approved.
Thank you, Councillor McNaughton.
You're welcome.
Does anyone have any questions? Councillor Nyman.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just on the retained lots, or on the retained piece, 15 meters frontage. Do you not have, is there not a minimum amount of frontage you're supposed to have? And then the other thing is, that 15 meters, is it going to allow an entrance into that parcel?
Through the chair, the frontage is not actually calculated as the same as the street line. The frontage is calculated where the building line would be, and generally the definition is a little bit convoluted, but it gets calculated as an average in the depth of the lot at the building line, essentially. And so we see that this fans out, the two side property lines fan out, so the frontage is actually much larger than 15 meters.
So that's, if I'm looking at it, I guess I just want to make sure. the heading west, Store Street stops, does it not, right where they, there? Like it, right on that little corner, I guess, right? That's
correct. I mean, there's street allowance, but the street will be further constructed. It will be extended, reconstructed, including a maintenance turnaround.
Okay. Councillor Nyman, can you see the size of the existing turnaround versus the new one? There's a little square there at the end of the street.
Yes.
That's the existing turnaround, and then the bulb is proposed.
And I see that, but I'm just saying, it's still saying 15 meters.
Oh,
I
yeah, no,
I want to make sure that there's going to be entrance there. And I always thought there had to be enough frontage. That's what my point.
Sure, I was just showing you the size of the... did you not tell me, Mr. Walsh, that the zoning reflects the limited frontage of this lot? Perhaps that would further answer Councillor Nyman's question.
That's a correct point. The zoning bylaw amendment applies to the retained lands, and it specifies the minimum lot frontage shall be the resulting lot frontage as per the Schedule 1 of the zoning bylaw, which reflects the boundaries as displayed on this key map. And so the zoning bylaw amendment takes into account for the perhaps somewhat lesser frontage. But the frontage is still practical because of the essentially pie-shaped nature of the frontage. So, for example, this is a 20-meter segment here. Building line is going to be about here, so it's closer to 20 meters frontage. That little pie-shaped area is private. Here's the turnaround is the lands to be conveyed to the county for road purposes.
You good with that, Brad? Anyone else? Yes, Councillor Maynard.
Thank you. This one's kind of interesting. I would say that the only when they showed the turnaround, I think historically, and if we're talking about roads that have been historically maintained, that it's not necessarily been right where that little turnaround in, that the road probably extends farther in towards that house that's on the point, and maybe was up to that really old road allowance that went across, which was actually the driveway between the fishing, the old fishing camp. I know we can't see enough pictures at once on this, so I would just suggest that to the benefit of the house on the point, that, you know, the plow might have to, that maybe that turnaround's not going to be totally fair for the house that's a little farther down. The other thing is I was condition number, sorry, the one where it talks about the road. Oh yeah, okay, number 7, condition number 7. So it's saying that the turnaround and because that road is fairly narrow there, right? That's an old street. But it says granular. So typically, I mean, that street is surface treated, so typically we've been asking for surface treated and not gravel turnarounds. So I just, like anytime we've assumed a road, even if it was gravel, we want them to surface treat it, and seeing as the street is surface treated, and number 7, it just says granular, so I just want to make sure that that's brought up to village standards, right? That it's a surface treated, at least, if not paved.
Through you, Mr. Chair, it does say a granular base.
Yeah, but yeah.
So therefore, there would be a surface on top of the base.
But it's not. We have seen it specified in more detail what the surface will be, right? I find that's a little ambiguous. Like we've seen conditions where it actually specifies what the surface will be, whether it's paved, whether it's surface treated, to how many layers, how many lifts of surface treating?
So, Mr. Harvey, are you saying that the word surface and to the specification satisfactory to the Director of Development Services will get you
It's through you, Mr. Chair. It's my understanding that it's going to be asphalt surface, not surface street, so it would be asphalt, HL. Well, I'm not sure which HL, but it's going to be an asphalt surface. Yeah.
Okay, so I mean, you can say that, and that it says condition, but is without like, I don't want to defer this, but as a friendly amendment, if that is the intent, can that just be put in that condition?
So could the word asphalt be put prior to the word surface? Yes, I think is what you're...
Right.
Which is...
Because that's what staff is saying the intent is, so I don't...
I understand what you're saying, and I don't disagree.
To the chair, maybe we did have some of that wording in there in an original draft, but we're going to be relying on the development agreement a little bit here, so that in the event that the rest of the road, it would be better to be resurfaced at the same time, that they can be all done at once. So it may be the case that they just provide a financial deposit equivalent to the cost of doing their segment, and then we'll do the whole road at another time.
I would suggest that is virtually the entire road. Like, I mean, other than a little bit at the intersection, that is the entire road.
It was just an effort at being flexible in our approach on this. We did have asphalt in the original version of the agreement of the condition wording.
So is there?
So that is the intent.
So is there any problem if that's the intent of including that? If that's the intent?
Well, it's my understanding they removed it because you wanted the flexibility. It doesn't supersede your ability to ask for it if required within the development agreement?
That's correct.
So you're not
No, I'm not
that?
comfortable with that, because if you're looking for flexibility would mean that you may go against the intent, which is to have it at village standards and have it asphalt. So when it says granular base, I think that's not sufficient. If the intent was to have it as it should be, as a at least a low level asphalt road, then I don't see why that can't be listed in there. I mean, it is pretty much the extent of the road. I mean, there might be a little bit at the intersection and right in front of that first house, but by and large, it is the road.
So you would agree to, and it would not...
I would agree with having that included in the wording of the conditions.
And it wouldn't compromise your flexibility in other regards?
No, and if I don't...
Even for costing, if it says asphalt, then they would be paying for asphalt, even if it's a cash in lieu?
That's correct.
Yeah.
Right.
Okay, so is everyone comfortable with that within the planning and engineering staff?
My question maybe to Paul is, what I was chatting over here is, would it be better for hard surface rather than asphalt? Because then they would have the choice of surface treatment. So we could put hard surface instead.
So what was the intent?
Through you, Mr. Chair, may I suggest a hard surface such as asphalt and surface turnaround?
Granular base and hard surface such as asphalt turnaround.
Well,
I mean, we're what?
Or just asphalt.
Yeah, I'm not sure. If you already had asphalt as a requirement,
If I can recommend something for council, personally, with my experience with roads, considering it's going to be a really low traffic road, I would recommend surface treatment just because it would be cheaper and it would probably last just as long. But so with the HL, which the surface treatment, anyways, I think I'm going to stop right there.
The only thing I would add is that it has turning movements.
Right.
Which is not as good for surface treatment, but anyway, I would leave that at your discretion. That's what you're doing with this file is you're...
Yeah, if it was me, I would put surface treatment there. But also I would just put hard surface in this document. Yeah.
So just to clarify, they've removed asphalt because there's no intention to put asphalt. That was not the intent, because now we're getting a contrary recommendation. So
No, we did discuss the specific wording around that, and we had asphalt or hard surface, or I forget the exact term, to be honest with you, that was used. So it was meant to be hard surfaced, and asphalt being one of the options.
Okay.
Okay, so we're going to have that amendment to that.
Friendly. We're not going to vote on that one. That's us.
So,
please, Catalina.
So through you, Mr. Chair, it will be just asphalt.
I think it's to be hard surfaced.
So it'll say necessary to accommodate the proposed lots, including but not limited to a hard surface, such as asphalt, or take out such as asphalt. Is it just including but not limited to a hard surface?
Hard surface turnaround is what I understood.
Well, the entire, because they're going to have to redo the road too, right?
So
yeah, it's confusing. Because the road's a bit.
May I read back the wording?
Yeah, please.
Offered wording. In reference to condition number 6 above, a development agreement under Section 53 of the Planning Act shall be entered into between the applicant and the county specifying offset works, engineering and sureties necessary to accommodate the proposed lots, including but not limited to a granular base, insert, comma, hard surfacing, and surface turnaround, municipal and utility service laterals, driveway accesses, and stormwater infrastructure within the municipal road allowance, all constructed at the cost of the applicant to a specification satisfactory to the Director of Development Services. So I've only included the words, comma, hard surfacing.
Right. Okay.
Thank you. Does anyone else want to speak to this motion?
You're not worried about the...
Yeah. Sorry? With the friendly amendment.
Yeah, it doesn't need to...
Yeah. Yes.
Well, we haven't voted.
No.
Seeing none, let's have a vote. All those in favor? Opposed? That motion's carried. Okay, let's move on to Judith and J. Murray Black. 1142 County Road 19, Concession 2, Ward 4, Ameliasburgh. Okay. Is the applicant or agent present?
I'm the agent, Megan Robinson.
And you've signed in?
No, I did not.
Thank you. Are you in agreement with the conditions of approval as outlined in the report?
Yes.
You are?
Yes.
Thank you. Did staff have anything additional to add to this one?
Through the chair, no. It was just some technical legal things associated with County Road 19 that's caused some significant delay, so we appreciate the applicant's patience, and that's all.
Is there anyone in the audience that would like to speak to this file? Yes, sir. Come forward, state your name and address, please. And ensure that you're signed in.
Jason Kane and Edel Kane, my wife. Okay, and it's regarding, we own the property at
Your address, please?
Yeah, 1848 Victoria Road. We own the property located at 1882 Victoria Road.
So 2 properties?
Yes. Correct.
Okay.
Yeah. So our concern is that the proposed amended rezoning for the aforementioned lots are directly across the street, or the road, I should say, from our property, 1882 Victoria Road, and we have a very large barn there. That barn is situated quite close to the road, and we have intentions of using the barn for agriculture use. And our concern is that with rezoning, is this going to be a problem for us down the road as far as using the barn for animals?
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah.
That's an appropriate question.
Okay.
I have one question for the deputy.
Sorry, what was your, this is for the, hi, what was your address again?
Home address is 1848 Victoria Road.
And the barn?
The barn is at 1882 Victoria Road.
1882,
Yeah.
thank you. That's it? Yeah.
Councillor Nyman, you might have another question.
Just the barn right now is what's the barn used for?
Limited use. It's being used currently for the storage of feed, and I do also occasionally use it for quarantine livestock.
So do you have, like, is there another, do you have another barn where you're keeping your livestock, or is this the only one?
Yeah, this is sort of an accessory building for me, but I am definitely considering down the road to use it to actually invest monies into the building and to use it for like a full used barn. So I'm concerned that, you know, there's 2 lots directly. I've owned properties in the past that have had problems like this where we have an agricultural building and, you know, they want to put in a house and they don't take careful consideration into distance from the barn, you know, noise, smell, that sort of thing. So I'd like to know, like, if the department in charge has taken careful consideration in regards to the location of this barn, which is 75 feet from the road, which is quite close. And the other concern is Mr. Black approached me, I guess, about 1.5 years ago, and just by luck, I just happened to be out on the road. He was actually talking with someone else, but he asked me if I'm currently using the barn. So that was a red flag for me as well. So that had, you know, a major concern for me. So that's why we're here. And we want to know, like, has it been carefully looked into? And if it hasn't, before this is passed, you know, what course do we take from here? Okay.
Thank you.
Sure.
Councillor Bullock.
I may ask a question of the deputant?
Yes.
Sorry if you can scoot back up there again. I'm just looking at the MDS sheet here, and it indicates that your address has 62 beef cows. Is that accurate?
No, that's not.
What is the accurate number?
No beef cattle. I own a poultry business, and I keep the birds, the majority of the birds that I breed, at 1848 Victoria Road, which is the other property that we reside in. The other property, as I said, currently is just used in a limited capacity. So no beef cattle, just poultry.
Okay, so nobody approached you as to what you're actually using that for, is that?
as I said earlier, Mr. Black approached me a year and a half ago and asked me specifically if I am currently using the large barn at 1882 Victoria Road.
Right. But it is an existing barn in good order and you're planning to use it? Is that?
Sorry?
It is an existing barn in good order and you're planning to use
That
it
is
for
correct.
agriculture purposes?
Yeah.
All right, thank you.
Yeah.
Sir, it's 1882. I just want to make sure, because we have a graphic on the screen right now, and it's 1882 is the barn you're referring to?
That is correct.
Okay,
yeah.
thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you, that was
Yeah.
mine.
Okay.
Sure, I guess the planning staff want to ask a question too. Very popular.
Through the chair, maybe I should be more in keeping with procedure here, that, and council would ask this question, I'm sure, but I just want to confirm something with the deputant about, the neighbor. The MDS calculation is premised on 3,100 square feet of barn. Do you know offhand how many square feet of barn?
I don't know the square footage, no, of the barn. My concern is distance.
Yeah, so it has been taken into account?
It has been?
It's been
Okay.
based on 3,100 square feet? And it's,
it is a very large barn.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And 3,100 square feet is fairly extensive.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it has been taken into consideration?
Yeah, I can show you the MDS report,
okay.
Mr. Chairman. Yeah.
Because we just don't want, again, any problems down the road when we, have the barn at full capacity and then have future homeowners complaining about noise or smell or that sort of thing.
Sure, as the chair pointed out, there is a graphic in the barn at that address.
The large arc there represents the barn that you're speaking to.
I'm sorry?
The large arc or radius or circle is the barn that you're speaking to.
That is correct, right in the center there, yeah.
So no house can be built within that arc.
So, and I know you had your conversation, does your MDS calculation encompass his potential future uses in whatever type of livestock?
The MDS guidelines say for underutilized barns that staff are to consider the common livestock system for the area. So typically, at the advice of UMAFRA, it's been a cow-calf operation for beef. And so that's what was used. How that might vary with poultry, it depends a bit on what kind of poultry.
And we won't be limited to poultry.
That's right, yeah, that's
right.
actually a good point. That's right.
Yeah. But to my experience, the nutrient units don't change too much. It'll be based on that square footage, and nutrient unit numbers don't vary too much unless you go into hogs or something like that, or it depends on what kind of manure management system you begin to use, whether you're liquid or solid. Those kind of things seem to factor more than the actual animal type.
So then in effect, it can have an effect on future use. If you just, like if a future landowner wanted to raise hogs, then you're saying basically that they could run into obstacles as far as changing?
Or if we did.
Right, or even if we did, that's right.
The MDS guidelines take into account of an expansion for that barn. So this is reflective of an expansion factor for the barn too, based on the acreage that it sits on. And you'll see that in the report, the acreage. So there are a lot of mitigating circumstances and contingencies built into the formula. So they won't need to, there's nothing that would require them to get a change of use permit to say switch from poultry to hogs.
I'm not sure if that gives you a level of comfort, but I think what our planner is saying is that this calculation and the 183.5 meter arc from that barn is quite adequate, in his opinion, to protect future farming activities within that structure. Is that accurate, Mr. Walsh?
That's correct. The MDS guidelines have been followed.
Okay, well, I guess that answers the question.
So is that like assured, or is that just, like it sort of seems not, I'm not totally confident. My question is you used the word, I forget just prior, that wasn't an affirmative. So like, is that a definite, that there's going to be no problems in the future, I guess, is my question. If again,
Right. Yeah, a farmer can have a change of livestock, and there's no permit required from municipal officials. Under the Nutrient Management Act, you may need to deal with the Ministry of Agriculture and Rural Affairs in terms of manure management and things like that. But any farmer has to do that over a certain number of animal units.
Okay, so to limit our question, like, we are not limited to the use of our barn in the future with the development of this property?
Through the chair to the deputant, that you could expand the barn, in fact.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay,
thank
that's
you.
great. Yep.
Oh, just before you go, we got one more.
I should have known, right? I don't know why I was so quick to leave.
Councillor Maynard.
Yeah.
This is a good discussion.
Oh, okay,
so
that's
because we're now trying to decide how big the barn is and what's in it, did you ever have anyone from the county or any other official knock on your door and come and actually measure your barn, look at your barn, see how your barn was laid out?
No.
So, okay, I'll leave that question as to how we determine it. Like, are we looking on the GIS?
No.
I don't know how we assess a barn or measure a barn or know how big a barn is, other than maybe by the GIS. Could be, you could have multiple stories, or could be those.
Maybe a question to staff rather than.
But yes, but I know the question to the deputant.
You've asked them if they had anyone
yes,
come.
and nobody was on site to look at your barn.
No, definitely not.
Any other?
Through the chair, the MDS guidelines allow for staff to rely on impact data and use a GIS system. So impact data includes very detailed information on the gross floor area of structures, including barns. And break it down by type of barn. There's probably about half a dozen or a dozen codes for different types of barns, in fact. So that is accepted methodology, largely because, of course, staff don't want to be trespassing on a neighbor's property, and absent owners, that information isn't always available. So thus, the guidelines acknowledge the use of that, and the guidelines rely on maximum gross floor area capacity for livestock purposes, and that comes down to the floor area. Typically, when you do these MDS1 guideline calculations based on impact data, they're too large, because parts of those barns are not used for livestock. They're storage, they're forage areas, and those areas you're supposed to exclude from your calculation. But without being in the barn, you don't have an opportunity to do that, so I haven't done that here.
Okay, so that incorporates a factor of safety is what you're saying. Thank you. Councillor Bolick.
Actually, my question is for staff, so I think we may be a little premature.
Did you, Councillor McNaughton, have a, no? Okay. Okay, well, thank you very much. Okay, so anyone else from the audience want to speak to this? Okay, seeing none, I'm going to ask for a mover and a seconder to put the motion on the floor, please. Moved by Councillor Maynard, seconded by Councillor Bailey.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. That Maynard Bailey motion that the report of the Department of Development Services dated November 20th, 2019 regarding consent files B1618, B718, and zoning amendment file number Z7-18 be received. That consent file number B618, B718, J. Murray Black and Judith Black for lands located in part Lot 91, Concession 2, Ward 4, Ameliasburgh, be approved subject to the following conditions. and that's 1 through 12. And that zoning amendment file number Z7-18J, Murray Black and Judith Black for lands located in Part Lot 91, Concession 2, Ward 4, Ameliasburgh be approved.
Thank you, Councillor Mader. Does anyone want to, you want to speak to this now, Councillor Bullitt? Or have a question?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Question through you to staff, and I'll start with sort of a bit of an explanation. It looks like MDS is not well understood amongst the public, perhaps not so much by council either. So MDS, is MDS there to protect the severed lands or the farmer, or both? What's the, just so that the people in the audience know what we're talking about?
Through the chair, I would say it's both, except more so for the farmer, because there is an expansion factor in favor of the farmer. So if I were to do an MDS 2 calculation, as if this were a new barn, the distance separation for an existing house would be much smaller.
So if I may just follow up on that. So if we have a 183-meter circle here, so if a person builds a house on the severed lot at 184 meters, and the farmer, the existing farmer, now decides to change the use of that existing barn to different livestock that would generate a larger circle, does that affect their ability to do that?
No, it does not.
Okay, thank you.
Councillor Maynard?
The entrances, and it's not clear again from the diagram, the entrances are coming off of Victoria or off of, they're coming off Victoria Road. Okay. Yeah, these diagrams are, could be a little easier for us to discern. Thank you.
And as we discussed, Councillor Maynard, I asked the planners about the building, the entrances on those slopes, and they're going to cover that within a approved grading plan prior to the consent being approved.
That's correct. If there's any risk of drainage impacting the road, then that will be addressed through the grading and drainage plan.
Okay, does anyone else want to speak to the motion? Seeing none, let's vote on it. All those in favor? Opposed? That motion is carried with a 2/3 majority. Okay, let's move on to adjourn committee of the whole and rise and report to council. Can I have a motion, please, to do that? Councillor St. Jean. Oh.
Through you, Mr. Chair, if I could get you to read the following, the within 15 days of council's decision.
Okay, you said 7 on the agenda.
Sorry.
Will be mailed out as prescribed, advising of the decision, the conditions of any, and the date on which the 20-day appeal to the local planning appeal tribunal expires. If no appeals are received, council's decision is final. Any person who wishes to receive a notice of decision of council must submit a written request to the municipal clerk or sign the sign-in sheet. Thank you. Now I think we can adjourn committee of the whole and resume. And I had a Councillor St. Jean, and I had a seconder in Councillor Bailey.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. St. Jean Bailey motion that resume sitting as council, or sorry, that committee of the whole now rise and resume sitting as council.
Okay. So moving on to item number 7, adoption of the committee of the whole recommendations, which received a two-thirds majority vote in favor of the staff recommendation. Can I have a motion to adopt those items, excluding item number 5.3? Mover, please. Was it 5?
5.4, we actually had an amendment, so that one was not a simple staff rewording. That one was an amended, that one was actually amended, right? So does that?
And it's still carried as amended with 2/3 majority. So it's the same process. There's no revote of it.
So could I have a mover, please? Anyone?
Oh, I can do it.
Councillor Prinzen, seconded by Councillor McNaughton.
Still down.
Prince and McNaughton motion that the recommendation of Committee of the Whole agenda items which receive 2/3 majority in favor of the staff recommendation being 5.1, 5.2, 5.4, 5.5, and 5.6 be adopted.
Opposed? That's carried. Okay. Referral or deferral to the next council or planning public meeting, which did not receive a 2/3 majority. Yep. So that would be 5.3. Is that 5.3? Is that a motion then? Or okay. Who wants to move that one? Councillor Bolick, seconded by Councillor Roberts.
This is a Bolick-Roberts motion to defer item 5.3 to the next council meeting on November 26th.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Bolick. All those in favor? Opposed? Carried. Okay, moving on to 9, bylaws for consideration. Okay, Councillor Bailey, seconded by Councillor McNaughton.
This is a Bailey-McNaughton motion that the following bylaws be read a first, second, and third time and finally passed: 9.1.1, 9.1.2, 9.1.4, 9.1.5, and 9.1.6.
Thank you. All those in favor? Opposed? Okay. That's carried. Confirmatory bylaw. Mover, please. Councillor St. Jean, seconded by Councillor Maynard.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. This is a St. Jean Maynard motion that the following bylaw be read a first, second, and third time and finally passed. A bylaw to confirm the proceedings of the Council of the Corporation of the County of Prince Edward at the meeting held on November the 20th, 2019.
Thank you, Councillor St. Jean. All those in favor? Opposed? That motion's carried. Adjournment. Councillor Bolick and Councillor Nyman, seconded by.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. This is a Bullock-Nyman motion that this meeting now adjourn at 8:50 p.m.